The humid air of Savannah clung to my skin like a second layer of grief, heavy and suffocating. It was nearly midnight on the Amtrak platform, and the dim yellow lights flickered above, casting long, wavering shadows across the cracked concrete. I was 18 years old, still wearing the white dress from my graduation ceremony earlier that evening. Valedictorian of my class. Top of every list, the girl everyone said was going places, and they were right. Just not where anyone expected. In my hand, I clutched a plain white envelope. Inside were $85 in small bills and a one-way ticket to Boston. That was it, my severance package from the family I thought loved me. My father, Gregory, leaned against the hood of his black Mercedes, checking his watch as if this were just another inconvenient appointment in his busy schedule. My mother, Lisa, stood beside him, her face a perfect mask of tragic necessity. There were no tears, no hugs, no whispered promises that this was just temporary. Just the cold, clinical efficiency of a business transaction gone wrong. "You understand why we have to do this, Sydney," my father said, his voice smooth, practiced, the same voice he used to charm donors and voters. "You are unstable. A liability. With the campaign launching next month, we cannot afford any episodes. You need help. We cannot provide here. It is for your own good. Disappear for a while. Get yourself sorted." He made it sound like a favor. Like exile was a form of therapy. I offered no argument. I offered no begging. I just stared at them, memorizing the scene. The way the street lamp reflected off the polished car door. The way my mother adjusted her pearl necklace, refusing to meet my eyes. The way the silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of everything they were not saying. That I was too loud, too opinionated, too real for their carefully curated world. I took a step back, the gravel crunching under my heels. "Goodbye," I whispered, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. They did not respond. They just got back into the car, the engine purring to life like a satisfied cat. I watched the red taillights fade into the darkness, shrinking until they were nothing but distant specks, leaving me entirely alone in the dark. Before I tell you how I survived that night and the empire I built to prove them wrong, drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from. Have you ever been the black sheep of your family? I would love to hear your story. I did not waste energy on tears during the train ride to Boston. My biology textbook said survival required homeostasis, and grief was a variable I had to eliminate. I stared at my reflection in the darkened window, hollow eyes, a graduation dress that suddenly felt like a costume from a play that had been canceled mid-performance. I made a pact with myself right there between the rattle of the tracks. No looking back. No hypotheses about what could have been. Only forward motion. Survival wasn't a choice. It was the only revenge I could afford. The first 5 years were a blur of adrenaline and exhaustion. I traded my valedictorian status for a uniform at a 24-hour diner, scrubbing grease off plates while reciting organic chemistry formulas in my head. I lived in a basement apartment that smelled of mildew and old copper, eating peanut butter straight from the jar because bread was an unnecessary expense. I put myself through night school, clawing my way into a biomedical program on a scholarship I demanded rather than applied for. I was relentless. I was terrifyingly efficient. I treated my life like a laboratory experiment. Remove the variables of family and emotion, and maximize the output of success. And it worked. My obsession with efficiency led me to the breakthrough. While my peers were partying or visiting parents on weekends, I was in the lab, obsessing over protein structures. I developed a synthetic, low-cost alternative to insulin, a formula that undercut the pharmaceutical giants by 80%. The licensing deal closed on a rainy Tuesday. $26 million. I signed the paperwork, walked out of the law firm, and bought a latte. It was the first time in a decade I did not check the price before ordering. By 31, I had the penthouse in Back Bay, the investment portfolio, and the wardrobe of a woman who owns the room before she even enters it. From the outside, I was the ultimate success story, the exile who became an empress. But money is a deceptive cure, It fixes the external chaos, the hunger, the cold, the bill collectors, but it does nothing for the internal architecture of trauma. This is the part they do not tell you in the rags to riches movies. You can leave the train station, but the station does not leave you. I call it the invisible chain. It is a phantom limb of fear that throbs even when you are safe. I would wake up at 3 in the morning in my 4,000 thread count sheets, heart hammering against my ribs, drenched in sweat. My body did not know we were safe. My body was still 18 years old, standing on that platform, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I bought expensive art I did not look at, and cars I rarely drove, trying to fill a void that wasn't shaped like material things. It was shaped like abandonment. I realized then that my parents had not just taken my home, they had taken my ability to rest. I was a millionaire who was still emotionally starving, forever waiting for someone to tell me I was a liability and drive away. I wasn't the only one left standing on the platform of expectation. I was just the only one pushed off. The others, my brother Tyler and my sister Chloe, were kept safely on board, cushioned by the very lies that exiled me. They were the golden children, the shiny ornaments my parents hung on the family tree to distract from the rot at the roots. Tyler was going to be the next Tiger Woods, a golf prodigy whose talent was nurtured with private lessons, country club memberships, and a condo on the coast before he could legally drink. Chloe was the creative spirit, bankrolled into an influencer lifestyle that was more about curating an image than creating a life. But potential is a heavy crown when you haven't built the neck muscles to carry it. Tyler washed out of the pro circuit before he even qualified, his drive dissolving into a haze of expensive whiskey and resentment. He lived in the condo my parents paid for, drove the car they leased, and played the role of the misunderstood genius while his clubs gathered dust. Chloe's brand stalled at a few thousand followers, her feed a curated museum of a life she could not afford without my mother's credit card. They were trapped in a different kind of prison, a gilded cage where the door was unlocked, but they were too terrified to fly. It took me years of therapy and late-night introspection to understand the mechanics of it. It wasn't random cruelty. It was a system. In a toxic family, roles are assigned, not earned. My parents, Gregory and Lisa, were hollow people. They had no internal source of self-worth, so they extracted it from us. Tyler and Chloe were the mirrors that reflected their generosity and status. I was the mirror that reflected their flaws. I was the truth teller. When my father lied about his campaign finances, I asked questions. When my mother made cruel comments about the help, I challenged her. I was the glitch in their perfect program. They did not exile me because I was bad. They exiled me because they needed a scapegoat, a vessel to pour their collective shame into so they could remain pristine. By casting me out as the unstable one, the liability, they absolved themselves of their own dysfunction. I became the problem, which meant they did not have one. It was a necessary sacrifice for their survival. Understanding this did not make the anger vanish, but it sharpened it. It turned my grief into a weapon. They had sacrificed me to save their image. Now, I was going to use that same image to destroy them. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, nestled between a utility bill and a subscription renewal. It was heavy. Cream-colored cardstock with embossed gold lettering, my parents' signature aesthetic. The Savannah Charity Gala, it read. Hosted by Gregory and Lisa Vance. Celebrating excellence in our community. A handwritten note was clipped to the back. Sydney, we hope you can put the past behind you and join us. It is for a good cause. My first instinct was to burn it, to watch the gold letters curl into black ash in my kitchen sink. But my analytical mind engaged before I could strike the match. The phrasing was wrong. My parents did not do olive branches. They did not do past behind us. They did leverage. They did transactions. Why now? Why after 13 years of silence? I did not RSVP. Instead, I hired a private investigator. It cost me $5,000, a drop in the bucket compared to the peace of mind it bought. The report arrived 3 days later, and it was a masterpiece of financial ruin. Gregory's re-election campaign was underwater. Lisa's charity was being investigated for misappropriation of funds. They weren't hosting a gala to celebrate excellence. They were hosting it to hunt. The report highlighted a specific detail. They were aggressively courting a mystery donor from Boston who had been anonymously funding local arts programs. I stared at the report, a cold smile touching my lips. The mystery donor was me. I had set up the LLC years ago to funnel money back into the city that raised me, specifically to programs that helped kids like I used to be. My parents did not want a daughter. They wanted a check. They were inviting the wallet, not the woman. I picked up the invitation again. The heavy cardstock felt different now. It wasn't a summons. It was a confession. They were desperate. They were cornered. And they had just invited the one person who could either save them or destroy them right into their lair. I pulled out my phone and dialed my assistant. RSVP yes to the Vance Gala, I said, my voice steady. And book me a flight to Savannah. First class. I have some business to attend to. Savannah hadn't changed. The humidity still hung heavy in the air, smelling of marsh grass and old money. I stepped off the plane into the thick, wet heat, and for a split second, my chest tightened. The ghost of the 18-year-old girl I used to be flickered at the edge of my vision, terrified and small. But I wasn't her anymore. I adjusted my sunglasses, smoothed the lapel of my silk blazer, and walked toward the waiting car. This time, I wasn't being driven away. I was driving myself in. The gala was held at the DeSoto, a grand hotel that smelled of expensive perfume and desperation. I arrived late, a calculated power move. The ballroom was a sea of black ties and designer gowns, the murmur of polite conversation creating a low hum of exclusivity. I paused at the entrance, scanning the crowd. I saw them instantly, Gregory and Lisa, holding court near the center of the room, looking for all the world like the pillars of the community they pretended to be. My father was laughing at something a donor said, his hand on the man's shoulder in that practiced political way. My mother was nodding, her smile fixed and bright, her eyes scanning the room like a predator looking for weakness. They looked exactly the same, yet entirely different. Smaller. The grandeur I remembered from my childhood was gone, replaced by a subtle fraying at the edges. My father's suit was expensive but dated. My mother's jewelry was a little too flashy, trying too hard to prove a point. They were performing success, and I was the only one in the room who knew the script was a lie. I moved through the crowd, head high. I wore a tailored black jumpsuit that cost more than my first year's tuition. My hair slicked back, my makeup sharp. People turned to look, not because they recognized Sydney Vance, the exile, but because they saw power. They saw the mystery donor. I felt their gazes slide over me, assessing, calculating. I didn't shrink. I let them look. I approached my parents' circle. My mother saw me first. Her smile faltered. Just for a second, confusion flickering in her eyes. She didn't recognize me. She saw a wealthy woman, a potential lifeline. She tapped my father's arm, and he turned, his charm turning on like a light switch. "Welcome," he beamed, extending a hand. "I do not believe we have met. I am Gregory Vance." I looked at his hand, the same hand that had placed my backpack on the curb 13 years ago. I did not take it. I just smiled, a cold, sharp thing. "Hello." "Gregory," I said, my voice cutting through the ambient noise. "We have met. It has been a while." The recognition hit him like a physical blow. His smile froze, then shattered. The color drained from his face, leaving him gray and old. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her throat. The silence that fell over our little group was absolute, heavy with 13 years of unsaid things. The trap was sprung, and they had walked right into it. Sydney? My mother whispered the name like it was a foreign word she was trying out for the first time. "Is that you?" I did not answer. I did not need to. The silence in the immediate circle was answer enough. The donors around us had stopped their polite chatter, sensing the seismic shift in the room's energy. Gregory tried to recover, his political instincts kicking in even as his world crumbled. He forced a laugh, a brittle sound that cracked in the humid air. Well, this is a surprise. Our daughter, Sydney. We did not expect you. Wealthy? I corrected him, my voice carrying clearly. I look wealthy. That is what you mean. That is why you invited the mystery donor, isn't it? Not because you wanted a reunion, because you are broke. The word hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Gregory's face turned a mottled red. Now, Sydney, let us not make a scene. This is a private matter. Perhaps we should step outside. No, I said, planting my feet. We did private 13 years ago at the train station. You wanted me to disappear quietly then. I did. But you invited me back here tonight, in front of all these people. So let us talk here. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It wasn't a check. It was a photocopy of the Amtrak ticket from that night, dated 13 years ago. I held it up. Do you remember this? $85. A one-way ticket to nowhere. You told everyone I ran away. You told everyone I was unstable. You told everyone I abandoned you. I turned to the crowd, raising my voice just enough to reach the back of the room. My parents did not send me away to get help. They exiled me because I knew too much. I knew about the campaign funds being diverted to pay for country club memberships. I knew about the charity dinners that were really just networking events for your real estate deals. I was 18 years old, and I was the only one in this family with a conscience. So you got rid of me. She is lying! Lisa shrieked, her composure shattering. She is sick. We tried to help her. She has always been jealous of her brother and sister. Jealous? I laughed, a cold, sharp sound. Jealous of Tyler, the failed pro golfer living in a condo you pay for? Jealous of Chloe, whose entire life is a credit card bill in your name? No, Mother, I am not jealous. I am the one paying for this party. I gestured to the room. Or at least, I was going to be. My LLC was the mystery donor you have been courting for months. You were begging for my money to save Gregory's campaign and pay off the second mortgage on the house. You did not know it was me. You just knew the check was big enough to bury your mistakes. I tore the photocopy in half, then in half again, letting the pieces flutter to the floor like confetti. Well, consider the offer rescinded. I am not buying your debt. I bought the bank that holds it instead. The foreclosure notice will be on your desk Monday morning. The room erupted into whispers. Gregory looked like he was having a heart attack, clutching the edge of a table for support. Lisa was sobbing, not with sorrow, but with the humiliation of being unmasked. I looked at them one last time, small, petty people who had traded their own child for an image that was now shattered forever. Enjoy the party, I said. It is the last one you will ever throw. I walked out of the ballroom without looking back, the heavy oak doors closing behind me with a finality that felt like a gavel striking. The humid night air hit me again. But this time, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt like oxygen. Outside, under the weeping willows draped in Spanish moss, I found Tyler and Chloe. They were standing by the valet stand, looking lost, like children waiting to be picked up from a party that ended too soon. Tyler was the first to speak. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in his life. Is it true? He asked, his voice rough. Did they really kick you out? They told us you hated us. They said you ran off with some guy. It is true, I said. Every word. They needed me gone so they could pretend we were perfect. And you two were the props in that play. Chloe started to cry, her mascara running down her cheeks. We did not know, Sid. I swear. We just thought. We thought you didn't want us. I know, I said, my anger softening into something like pity. But now you do know. And you have a choice. You can stay in there, playing your parts, or you can walk away. But if you walk away, you do it on your own. I am not here to save you. I am not your ATM. But if you want to be my brother and sister, just family, no strings attached, the door is open. I left them there to make their own decisions. My driver was waiting. the engine idling. As I slid into the back seat, I pulled out my phone and made one last call. "It is done," I told my lawyer. "Set up the fund. The Sydney Scholarship for girls. Full ride for anyone in Chatham County who has been kicked out, marginalized, or told they do not belong. And make sure the announcement goes out tomorrow morning. I want it on the front page." I hung up and leaned back, closing my eyes. I didn't feel triumphant. Triumph is loud. This was quiet. This was peace. I had come back to burn their house down. And I had. But in the ashes, I was planting a garden. My success wasn't just about proving them wrong anymore. It was about ensuring that the next girl standing on that train platform, holding a ticket to nowhere, would have somewhere to go. If you have ever had to walk away to save yourself, hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs to know that being discarded isn't the end. It is the beginning. And tell me in the comments, what is the one thing you have built that you are most proud of? I read every single one.